Gregg Rosenthal, NFL Network Around the League podcast, joining the show. Not sure if he's loose off the booch or not, but you celebrating TB12's birthday, Greg?
I am not, but it's nice as a man in my early 40s to see someone also at the top of their career like Tom Brady doing well.
Yeah, how does that make you feel to see Tom Brady at 44 years young go out there and probably have as many touchdowns this year as years on this earth? It's interesting as we're starting to get older than some of these professional athletes, isn't it?
It is weird. No, and I grew up a Patriots fan too. So it's more just like amazing to think that same 2019 second half of the year, Tom Brady, who was surrounded by really bad Patriots players, just lighting it up as a top 5 quarterback. I really remember a 2011 playoff game when they lost to the Ravens that people said, well, there's the end of the Patriots dynasty. And now here we are a decade later.
You mentioned the Patriots and talking about what they have going on right now. Where do you stand in terms of expectations for this team to really compete with Buffalo in the division as well as make a run back to the playoffs in the AFC?
Look, if Buffalo's defense looks like it did for most of the time that Sean McDermott's been there, bounces back a little, to me, they're the AFC favorites. They're right there with KC, and I don't think the Patriots stand up to that on either side of the ball. But on defense, they've added so much talent. I think all the attention was on the offense, but their defense was more disappointing, had a bigger collapse last year. And to me, with Bill Belichick's track record, the secondary that they have, and the pieces that they had in the front seven, like that should be a top 10 defense. That should be potentially a top 5 defense. So if they get a decent offense out of Cam Newton or Mac Jones, I think they're a wild card type of team. I think they bounce back a little bit from where they were last year.
Gregg Rosenthal joins the show. Ben Lyons in for Rich, the Rich Eisen Show. I can't believe we're 48 hours away or so from football. We're going to have the Hall of Fame game this week. TJ's Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yesterday, Mike Florio was on, and we were talking about how the situation in Pittsburgh could turn pretty ugly pretty fast. What are you expecting from Pittsburgh as Big Ben heads into his last season?
Mike, my old boss, he's kind of a closet Steelers fan. He went to school there. He grew up there. I think, Steelers fans are thinking that, thinking the worst-case scenario. I try to take a look back and remember this team won 12 games last year. If you just stack up their front 7 talent on defense, I'd put it with any team in the NFL. If you stack up their skill position talent, receivers, tight ends, running back, now with Najee Harris, I'd put it with top 5 of the NFL. I also look at Mike Tomlin's track record, literally never had a losing record, and I think people are assuming that things are going to fall apart a little too quickly. The offensive line can't get worse. I'm not saying they're the AFC North favorites, but I've just learned not to count out this Tomlin team, and they tend to do better in seasons if you look through their history under Tomlin, where people aren't expecting much. And I think they'll be right there as a potential playoff team.
Let's head to the NFC, Greg. I'm a big Rams fan out here in Los Angeles. Devastating news, obviously, with Cam Akers. What can we expect from Matthew Stafford? I have no idea if he's truly elite, will get them over the top in the toughest division in football, or if they're going to be, squandering to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know either. I live in LA too now, and so my daughter's a big Rams fan. I let her kind of just jump sides from my Patriots. I think the expectation's so high for Stafford that it's almost a little unfair. The defense, to me, is probably going to take a step back just because they were so good, and you're replacing Brandon Staley with Raheem Morris. I think Stafford is more of a test on Sean McVay, because I feel like we know who Stafford was. If he was, to use your word, elite, we'd know by now. He's been in the league for a decade. Doesn't mean he can't be incredibly productive and be a top 7, 8 type of quarterback. But to me, it's on McVay to make this work. They showed a lot of faith in that offensive line by not making any changes. They believe in that offensive line, and I certainly think, from what I hear about Deshaun Jackson, how he's looked at training camp, and the receivers that they have enough weapons, and they have a coach that I think has a lot of confidence in his ability to scheme up plays. But I don't see them as some heavy favorite. To me, that's the best division in football, and I don't see them really any different than a year ago. The difference to me is that the 49ers should be much better. So I think there's 3 teams in that division that all have a chance to win the conference, and that's tough when you have to play each other 2 times each.
Gregg Rosenthal joins the show, NFL Network Around the League podcast. Ben Lyons in for Rich on the Rich Eisen Show. You went from the best division in football, the NFC West, who was no doubt the worst division last season, the NFC East. When you look at the NFC East with TJ's Dallas Cowboys, do you see them as the favorite in the division, or are you rolling with Rich and the Washington football team?
I'm with Rich. I mean, it's his show, so I guess I got it.
Come on, Greg. You can say whatever you want.
He's not here.
Come on, Greg. Like, we could have breakfast for dinner. We can do whatever we want.
No, I do agree with Rich. Although, you know what? I'm not I work for the NFL. I'm not allowed to, pick these but I can make predictions. I'm surprised that the Eagles and the Giants are such big underdogs in this division if you kind of look at the odds. To me, any one of these four teams could have a chance because things could go sideways with Washington. But I've watched such a boring Washington team for 20 years now, and I think the talent that Fitzpatrick has around him, I think their offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, is actually pretty underrated, can dial up some good plays. That with that defense, to me, they are the favorite because they are the most complete teams. But if you told me we're going into Week 16 and all four of these teams are near 500 and they all have a shot, and that's including the Eagles, who have a pretty good-looking defensive line, a great-looking offensive line, like that wouldn't shock me either if this is like a 4-8 race.
Greg, every day now, we're at that time of the year, there's a highlight that goes around from camp, and it gets people fired up. I mean, Chris Brockman almost spilled his lavender kombucha because he saw Kyle Pitts catch a touchdown in practice.
But Greg, you saw that Kyle Pitts touchdown. I mean, come on.
It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, so.
Advice for fans not to lose their minds on any highlights or on the flip side, any injury news that comes out at camps right now. This is the time of year where fans' emotions can be very up and down.
Yeah, especially this first week. So pads came on for, I think, 29 teams today. So Bill Belichick would say that this first week of camp isn't even football. Bruce Arians calls it soccer practice, and that it's still sort of in the evaluation and teaching period, and literally the competition that they've been waiting for since May when they were on the field at OTAs starts today. And so I never put too much into the evaluations of who's up, who's down. The injuries are different. The injuries I think are significant, and you can start to look at some teams sideways, like your Cowboys who insist DeMarcus Lawrence's back surgery isn't significant. He's been out 7 months. Amari Cooper, they insist his ankle injury not significant. He had that surgery 7 months ago. I mean, you rehab an injury after a major surgery for 7 months as an elite athlete, and you're still not 100%. Like, to me, these are significant signs that we learn as this month wears on, something to keep an eye on. And you look at the Colts today, learning that their guard Quentin Nelson is going to be out for at least a month or two. Those are the things that start to set you back before the season even starts.
Gregg Rosenthal joins the show. Ben Lyons in for Rich on the Rich Eisen Show. You can catch Greg, of course, on NFL Network and around the league. What do you got for Greg there, Brockman?
Did you see this thread that Ralph Vacchiano had about Giants practice today, Greg? Like, what is going on over there? And, like, Joe Judge just makes these guys run sprints like he's Herb Brooks. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
I am amazed by it, that he made them run sprints after an all-out
after a fight on the field.
And not just a fight, because those happen at almost all training camps. Some coaches have it pretty locked down where you really aren't allowed to do it, but that happens. But this one supposedly had like 20 people in it, and Daniel Jones, your quarterback, is at the bottom, and then you're punishing them by running around the field. Like, it's a fine line whether you're going to keep your players engaged with that kind of attitude with Joe Judge, and it looks like a team, when that does happen, that he doesn't have a total amount of control, and that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, but Greg, you've been someone who's covering the NFL for a long time. I would imagine it's just going to blow over in the New York media. No?
I know. We got nothing to do. It's early August. People are hungry. Like, fans, reporters, we haven't been at training camp in this sort of way now for 2 years, so we're loving it. Usually, I like the fights when the teams practice with each other, though. That's always, like, Chargers, Saints, they practice every year. If you show up on the first day, you have a guaranteed couple fights if you go there for free.
Yeah, but Jason Garrett, someone had a photo of him, and he had a T-shirt in the Giants font that said "fight." It was like he was expecting it.
It's mixed messages. Maybe it's that offense is frustrated because from what I've heard, and granted, it's the first week, no one's tackling or anything. that offense isn't working right now. The defense is dominating every day. That happens early in training camp a lot. But this is an offense, I think, under Garrett that has a lot of pressure on it. They added a lot of pieces. Kenny Golladay went out of practice with an injury today. We'll see if that's serious. But Daniel Jones, all those weapons. And you have Garrett, which, I'm sure, the Cowboys fan there is like, I don't know if he's the guy to like come up with a lot of creative stuff when you have all these different pieces on the perimeter that the Giants have.
Oh, Gregg Rosenthal joins the show, NFL Network Around the League podcast.
Yeah, Greg, what can we expect out of Jameis? Is he really going to be the guy down there for New Orleans? And will they even beat the Bucs? I mean, come on.
I saw Michael Thomas is going to be out for a while, and they have a great offensive line. They have Kamara, and they have Latavius Murray. And I thought, like, is Sean Payton going to be tempted here to start Taysom Hill? He loves them. He's paying them, run the ball a lot and rely on their defense. I think that's a possibility. But when you look at Jameis Winston, I try not to put too much in like he's in the best shape of his life stuff, but he looks like a different person. I mean, he had to have lost 30 or 40 pounds from his peak. I don't know if that's going to make him a better player, but he's certainly got the arm. He's got the coach now. He's got the production. This guy's, put up 7,000 yards or way more than that in his career. 7.8 yards per attempt. They got to give him a chance, I think, because the upside is so much higher than you would have with Taysom Hill. But I don't know if it'll be week one.
Yesterday, Greg, it was just kind of understood and decided that Nick Foles is going to go replace Carson Wentz again, this time in Indianapolis. Hasn't happened just yet, but do you see that happening, and is that the best path forward for the Colts now that Carson's on the shelf for a while?
I don't see it happening. I think they're going to see how Wentz recovers. They're in no hurry whatsoever, and that if they did make a move for a veteran, it might not be Foles. I really think they will be cognizant of Wentz's feelings and inviting that whole trauma back into the Colts. Like, I think they're more likely to look at a guy if they really need to, because Wentz isn't 100%. Like a Jacoby Brissett, who they've had before in Miami, or maybe they call up the Raiders and see what it would take to get Mariota. But it's a mess because their offensive line right now is banged up. Carson Wentz, to me, is not an attractive starting quarterback unless he has his athleticism. He's got troubles when he's 100% healthy. And I think they've certainly won the award for kind of the worst week one of training camp. And I don't think Foles is going there. He pitched himself to go there, but he's got guaranteed money into next year, and I don't think the Colts necessarily want to pay that.
Hey, Greg, before we let you go, a lot of talk being made about Tyreek Hill versus Usain Bolt in a race. You saw DK Metcalf try and make the Olympics. Came up a little short. When you're watching these Olympic Games, do you think about which NFL players would do well? For example, how do you think Aaron Donald will do in the hammer throw?
With if he had been training his whole life, I could see it. Like, he's got the footwork, which they kind of need on top of that strength. It looks like he would have to gain even more weight. I always laugh though when they talk about like the tracks and Usain Bolt and the NFL players thinking they can compete. I mean, these track athletes, please, let's have some respect. They are no joke. None of these NFL players are going to be competing with them. Marquise Goodwin, I guess, would be the only one I'd give a nod to who actually did make the Olympics back in the day.
Who wins the quarterback triple jump challenge? Tannehill?
Ooh. Man, I think Lamar, like the rangy, springy speed that he would have, like approaching that. I feel like Lamar Jackson could do anything if you put him into basically any sport.
Greg, appreciate the insight on the hypothetical quarterback triple jump as well as football games that will be played next month. Thank you so much.
I know. I answered it very seriously.
You really did.
Question for what it was.
No, expert analysis. There's no other show across American sports media today where you're going to get an NFL Network analyst breaking down Lamar Jackson's triple jump potential.
Well, yesterday
only place you're going to get it.
Yesterday we were talking about Sports Reporter Survivor. So, how would you do in Survivor, Greg?
Oh, man. Well, I always would back myself. I'm small. Brockman knows. I'm a little guy, but I'm wiry. Like, I don't need that much food to last a long time. I run long distances. Like, I can outlast people. They won't see me coming.
Yeah, but Greg, I kind of see you as a glamper. No? Can you really get down and dirty out there in the wilderness? So you need that tent to be, have Wi-Fi.
I can't say I have a lot of practice doing this, but I think my mental toughness is going to carry me through.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Guy loves
guys.
to compete. Greg.
See you, buddy.
Greg Rosenthal loves to compete.
Loves
You
to
never
compete.
hear guys who aren't professional athletes be described as, oh, you got to go out on a date with my friend John. He's a really great guy. He loves to compete. He's got a good job.
I'm adding that to my bio on Twitter, my Twitter bio.
Loves to compete.
Loves to compete.
Greg Rosenthal talking about this mental edge and his wiry frame surviving in the wilderness.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.